It is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025, and I do hereby call this meeting to order of the Boca Raton Airport Authority. Hannah, please call the roll.
Mr. Tucker?
Here.
Mr. Nobles?
Here.
Mr. Vogel?
Here.
Ms. Bud? Here. Mr. Golden?
Present.
Mr. Now?
Here.
Mr. Pollard?
Here. I do see that a quorum is present. Before we dive in, we do have both of our scholarship winners here today. Manuel Carab and Gabriela Rodriguez, Manuel is the recipient of the airport scholarship as well as the Ken A. Day scholarship, and Gabriela is the same. Yeah, great. Would both of you mind picking the podium and just telling us a little bit about yourselves? Gabriela, why don't you go first, followed by Manuel? And it's an honor for you to be here.
Gabriela Rodriguez. I plan to study aerospace engineering at the University of Florida. And it's always been my passion. It's always been my passion to pursue this career. The scholarships they give me the opportunity to pursue that without stress of financial situations. So I'm super grateful that all of you were able to give me this opportunity. Thank you again today.
Wow. And Manuel, would you like to do the same up there for us? Kind of hard to have to follow it. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Manuel Karam, and first I'd like to say thank you guys for everything you're doing for me and giving me these two great scholarships. Without this, I would see myself in a very stressful situation at the University of Florida, which is where I'll be studying aerospace engineering. My goals are to work for NASA or any company that works with aeronautical aviation. Yeah.
Where did you go to high school?
I'm going to, well, I just graduated from John I. I was third in my class, and I graduated with my AAs, so I should be only doing 2 to 3 years at UF.
And Gabriel, where did you go to high school?
I went to Florida Atlantic University High School, so
Okay.
then I graduated with over 90 credits, so I'll be doing like 2 years, 2.5 years.
Well, congratulations to you both. Thank you for sharing your story.
Very nice.
It's really inspiring to see you both doing so well. Moving on, approval of minutes. We'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the first meeting. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, agenda changes. Ms. Bennett, any items to change?
None this evening.
Item 4, election of officers. Mrs. Petrick, would you provide an overview of the bylaws in regard to this?
Certainly, so. Let me just know those bylaws that, bylaws, for, there are 2-year terms and a maximum of 2 consecutive terms in each position. And
It's 1 year.
1 year. I'm sorry, yes. 1-year terms with 2 consecutive terms in each position. I apologize, I don't have the list of the ones that are up for. All 3. All 3 are do of the Robert's rules update, certainly. Okay. So under the Robert's rules, if somebody has a nomination that they want to make, and the nomination is a second and the nomination, if that nomination fails, then you want to another nominee until we get. And typically, I think the way that you put into the past is that you start from chair, vice chair, the secretary, treasurer, and you do it in succession. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, so we're looking for a nomination for chair.
I'd like to nominate Randy Nobles as our next chair.
I'll second that.
Want to think about it?
Are there any other nominations? Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Randy is our new chair. And Rob,
One more year.
Thank you. I kept the seat warm for you, bud. Move my lunch over here. We go and congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be up here. I know I've been on the board for a while and I'm glad to be able to step up for this position. So thank you, and I won't disappoint. So I guess I continue on then with the vice chair position. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I'll make a nomination. Vice Chair. I will nominate Cheryl Butt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? Any discussion? All in favor of Cheryl for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Finally, secretary treasurer. We need a nomination for secretary treasurer.
I'd like to nominate Jim now.
All right,
Oh, second.
all right. Any other nominations for secretary treasurer? Any discussion about Mr. Now, who has served in this capacity in the past? All in favor?
Aye.
He's learning.
Okay, so we have our new slate of officers. So
I'm a civilian again.
so continuing on with the agenda, public requests. If any member of the public wishes to provide a comment on any item, the time to do so is now. Please complete a public comment card identifying the item upon which you wish to be heard and provide it to Miss Nevada. The public comment cards are located in the back of the room. Each member of the public wishing to comment will be provided with 5 minutes to do so. The chair reserves the right to move the public comment opportunity on a specific agenda item to the point in the agenda when that item is to be considered and or to extend the allotted time per speaker. Hannah, are there any public? So consent agenda, there are no items on the consent agenda, is that correct, Clara?
Yes, sir.
Clara, any federal, state or municipal input?
Not at this time.
Financial report. I guess is this still Mitch's?
It's the month of May.
Okay.
So I was asked act in office.
Okay, please, Mr. Fogel.
So first of all, thank you all for letting me, give me the opportunity to serve as secretary treasurer over the last few years. It's been a real hoot. I appreciate that. I have enjoyed it and I love working with everybody. I did review the detailed report for May and found it to be in order, and I will now turn it over to Robert Abbott to go over the report. Mr. Abbott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fogel. So in your package, the financial report through May 31st, 2025, total operating revenues are approximately 5.8 million, and that's 5.6% of our budget year to date, and that's still due to the flowage and customs. Seasonal nature. Total operating expenses are approximately 3.4 million, and that's down about 12.70% of budget. Net income before depreciation is 2.5. So on behalf of airport management, Secretary Treasurer expected to present our financial report to the airport.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to, any questions first, Rob?
I have questions. Looking on the general, the litigation and the project phase, are we not done with the litigation expenses? I can see May we had, that the final expense.
With respect to the premier litigation, the only thing that we've been working on recently is recordation. There was some difficulty in getting the material reported from the transaction, and so we've placed it under the litigation file because it was kind of so well out of that settlement agreement. But and then we are monitoring, but I don't put, we're putting it in the litigation file. I think we have, yeah. Okay, we're monitoring litigation that the authority is not party to, but which implicates that particular lease between the we are no fair housing.
Maintenance, and it's also part of the settlement agreement because there's a certain amount in escrow.
That's right.
for that, So
Well, we'll see some fees.
we're still yeah, it's just.
I mean, minor fees.
Right.
Just church.
Just checking with report states, if there are
Okay.
some activities that are happening with regard to that litigation.
I have a question, just out of curiosity, what would cause legal fees? Looking for education here, to go in the general category from just under 7 to about 11 and a half. That having nothing to do with litigation.
For the month of May, this is when we finalized the leasing policy, so there was a lot of activity associated with the leasing policy that approved, that was expended that.
Is there a motion to approve the financial report?
So move, second.
Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Tenant reports and requests, there are no, tenant reports or requests for the month. Operation and noise abatement report, Lionel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Leonardo Romero, Operation Coordinator. Before you is the Operation and Noise Abatement Report for the month of May 2025. During the month of May 2025, there were 6,653 operations, which is an 18% decrease from operation of May 2024. This decrease was due to a decrease in flight training in operations, most likely because the semester end at the beginning of May, and we have a TFR and Lean student which is on vacation. Since the presidential election inauguration in January 2025, 10 VIP TFR has been implemented with Mar-a-Lago, resulting in a total of 5,677 operations under the TFR. There was only one TFR during the month of May 2025, which happened on the first weekend, causing operation to increase by 52% compared to the first weekend of May 2024. Again, that only TFR was 667 operations. And as you can see in the first graph, February and March were the highest morning operation due to this TFR. Jedi delivery were down by were up by 16% compared to May of 2024, and Afghan delivery were down by 9% compared to May of 2024. There were 9 households that filed noise concern May 2025, which it was from the noise hotline and the online noise reporting form. During the month of May 2025, Cousin had 191 aircraft clearance, which is an increase from the 174 total clearance during May 2024, and there was 3 vessel clearance. These 191 aircraft arrived from 21 different countries, and there were 39 after our clearance in the month, of which 19 occurred on days when the facilities normally close. In our observation area during May 2025, the observation area received an average of 1,002 visitors. The third week of May was a higher count on visitors with 292 visitors, indicating steady engagement from the community. And this concludes the operations report for the month of May 2025. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are we getting any marine clearings anymore? Is that all technology driven?
Very rarely, but we did have 2 this month.
Okay.
3, excuse me.
Okay.
This month. But you're right, as soon as we opened the facility to made it available, there was an app that
Yeah.
facilitated it, but we do occasionally see some.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. The 2025 Airport Improvement Program grant assurances. Clara, would you present this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this information is purely just for background information for you. As you know, with every new federal grant that the airport authority accepts, there comes a contract with the FAA in the form of these grant assurances. There were some recent changes to the grant assurances that we wanted to highlight for you as we anticipated a grant being offered to us in the next couple of months. The changes relate to a new grant assurance that was included in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024, which is Grant Assurance number 40, that relates to the prohibition of airports let me rephrase. Airports can no longer prohibit the sale of avgas, 110 low lead. This is a movement that some airports are experiencing, particularly in California, where there's pressure to ban the sale of avgas. But what Congress has said is that until a viable option is available, airports are not able to preclude that sale, prohibit the sale, or limit self-fueling. There are also changes to Grant Assurance number 30, which relates to civil rights and DEI initiatives to ensure that grant assurance conforms with the new executive order that was issued under the new administration. So we have a full copy of all of the grant assurances and executive orders and federal laws that we're required to follow with each new grant. And there's also a letter from Secretary of Transportation Duffy that further highlights the contractual obligations that the authority would enter into with a new grant.
Any questions for Clara? Boca Raton Airport Authority fee schedule, Rob Abbott.
Thank you. Yes, so in your package is the Airport Authority fee schedule for your approval. These fees cover airport badging and the customs user fees that the pilots will pay when they clear customs. So we are recommending the fee schedule does remain the same as in the previous year. So with that, Airport Management recommends approval of Resolution 061525, Oakland Airport Authority adopting the airport fee schedule in accordance with the accounting policy and procedure.
Motion. Second, any discussion, questions?
Are we confident that we're still at least breaking even on the various fees and services we're providing, or? I know we had said, I guess, the board, we wouldn't try to seek a profit, although that wouldn't be bad either, but just making sure we're breaking even on these things.
Yeah, we've done some, looking into it on the back end. It is inching closer as expenses are increasing, but currently the fees that we're covering do cover.
Any other questions or discussions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Approval of the auditor selection committee for external auditing services. Claire, do you want to add a little color to this?
This will be Rob.
Okay.
We'll be presenting it, but this is again still highlighted in accordance with Florida statutes to describe process that we have to follow that you'll walk through.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the airport authority's current contract for professional auditing services is currently with Brown Associates. That's expires with the completion of the fiscal year that was first audited in 2024. So we're now going to procure a new auditor's services, which will begin with the year that we're currently in, that will be completing in September 30th, 2025. So Florida statutes do require that the airport authority establishes an auditor selection committee for the purpose of selecting the auditor. This committee is going to establish the factors that will be used for selecting the auditor. The committee, they're also going to establish evaluation, and they're going to look at the release for proposals and the ranking and recommendations that they will bring to the airport authority. Florida statutes also specify the composition of the committee. So it's has to consist of at least 3 members. One of those members has to be from the airport authority board. And they will serve as chair, and then 2 external committee members will be selected as well. Florida statutes also state that airport management is not allowed to be on the committee itself, but someone can serve as a liaison to the committee. So airport management, we've identified 2 external candidates that have said they're interested to serve on the board of the committee. So we would like to bring, it's Ms. Kirsten Russ, who's the Enterprise Assistant Director of Finance for Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, and Mr. Orette Palmer, who's the Financial Analyst 3 for the Palm Beach County Department of Airports. Again, they both said they're interested and are available to serve on the committee. And then we will also recommend the Secretary Treasurer, which is now Mr. Now, to serve as the chair on the board, and then myself to serve as the committee liaison. So with that, Airport Management and Secretary Treasurer do recommend the board establish the Auditor Selection Committee, designating committee chair as Mr. Now. Ms. Russ and Ms. Palmer will serve as members, and then myself will serve as Airport Management liaison.
Thank you, Rob. Is there a motion to approve the Auditor Selection Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Rob. 2025 Executive Director, stretch goals. If you recall, back at the beginning of the year, we had a discussion around Clara's performance and subsequently approved a 10% of the base compensation stretch goal bonus opportunity for Clara. This is above and beyond what is already provided for in the contract. Subsequently, this was embedded into a new contract with Clara. And, I, working with Clara and Amy, were tasked with coming up with some stretch goal recommendations to bring forward to the board. And, what we discussed and where we feel like we ended up, we just didn't want to say, okay, a stretch goal is meeting 150% of your financial goals. These are new things, innovating, cutting edge. And so we would like to present those, and I'm going to turn it over to Clara to do so. Most certainly, we still are welcoming of input that anybody would have towards these, and we want to be able to adopt them, and we have a resolution to subsequently approve to move them forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Clara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we thought quite a bit about the directive that and the direction that the board gave us earlier in this year about making sure that the effort that we would undergo, that I would be directed to undergo, was something that would meet the airport authority's strategic objectives, would meet a need that currently exists, that would position the airport authority to be a leader in the industry. And to, again, just bring something back that was innovative and creative and meaningful for the airport and for the airport authority and our stakeholders. So we came up with 3 projects. The 3 are our, as Chair Nobles mentioned, these are our ideas that we think meet those criteria that the board set out for us. And our recommendation would be that, you let us know if you think that these are worthwhile, if all 3 are worthwhile, 2, or if you focus on 1, et cetera. So again, the idea is to have this be a board-driven process. But in essence, the 3 goals that we came up with are, number 1 is to develop strategies for land asset optimization to revenue growth. So this is a project that would result in the completion of a land development business plan that would sort of be almost an extension of the strategic plan that we did in 2020, that would provide the airport authority with a roadmap for proactively positioning our existing leases, maybe working with our existing tenants on potential redevelopment opportunities, or taking possession back of some of the leases that maybe are underutilized, similarly to what we did with Premier. And also, as allowed for in the Enabling Act that was amended 2 years ago, potentially looking at off-airport opportunities for revenue growth as well. We think, again, since I've been here 11 years, the topic of land development and strategic need for really maximizing the efficiency of the asset that is such a limited asset here, given our demand. That's been something that's always on the forefront, but this is something that would actually put these ideas into a workable plan that could be executed. The second project that we came up with is to evaluate the feasibility of attracting an advanced air mobility operator here to Boca Raton. This focuses again on emerging technology and how the airport authority can position itself to do an environmental scan and take a look at what a number of different factors, including potential demand, infrastructure requirements, network planning, and potential partnerships, perhaps with other Florida airports, where you would have an existing kind of a route and maybe a fully vetted, business plan that could then be used to entice an operator here. So the study would evaluate, again, the emerging technologies, current, technical and regulatory landscapes, area demographics, capital costs, potential funding sources, as well as potential revenue for the line of business. The third item is meant to address a goal, an issue that we deal with, unfortunately, as part of the federal contract tower program here at the airport, and this is also an issue that affects our industry nationwide, which we've all been hearing quite a bit about, which is the controller staffing situation. As critical as the need is for for air traffic controllers at federal aviation, FAA facilities, that's an even greater need at contract tower airports, because we have to compete with both the military and with FAA for that limited talent pool. Last year, the FAA authorized a new program for collegiate training initiatives called Advanced CTI, Advanced Air Traffic CTI, Collegiate Training Initiative, that basically allows universities to develop curricula that mirror the FAA's training at Oklahoma City for air traffic controllers. So there are CTI programs in South Florida, but they are not advanced CTI. So when a student graduates from a CTI program, they still have to go to the FAA training facility at Oklahoma City. The failure rate is extremely high. It's over 2/3. So with the goal of the enhanced CTI program that the FAA has outlined is that the university setting would mirror and follow the FAA's requirements. So a university or college would have to develop a program that meets those requirements. They would have to have the equipment in place, et cetera, and be certified by FAA to allow for the students to attend that program. And then upon graduation, they would be able to work at a contract tower facility for a minimum of a year before they're eligible for for an FAA facility. So the goal there is to, again, create more opportunities for training, but also in terms of the federal contract tower program, of which we are a part, stabilize a little bit the hiring and the staffing at contract towers, because often it is the case that particularly the younger folks who are military controllers, when they leave the military, they're eligible for contract tower program and FAA. They apply for both. Contract tower contractors are more nimble in their hiring, so they get hired first. But as soon as the FAA hires them, they leave. So they end up, again, just not being enough in contract tower airports to create stability in the program. So having them be at least a year in a contract tower program would be a significant benefit. So the objective with this initiative would be to explore the process, the cost, all of the requirements that would have to be met, and identify a local community partner, local college or university. I can think of a few that might be logical choices that we could perhaps partner with. Identify again the role of the airport authority in perhaps financing or funding some of the equipment and et cetera. So again, the idea would be to fully evaluate what it would take and what role the airport authority would have in bringing such a program here to Boca Raton. Currently, there are, according to what I can tell, there are, I think, 3 universities nationwide that have the enhanced CTI. One is in Riddle, and the other 2 are in Oklahoma. So I think we maybe can compete if we wanted to bring such a program here and we're able to get that completed.
Thank you, Claire. Questions, thoughts, input, discussion?
It's a lot to bite off.
It is, and I think, I mean, a lot of this is, the first year is gonna be exploratory and just in, if we adopt all 3 of these, one of them may drop off after a year or 2 because we just, find it to be impractical. So, and, but also with that said, Mel, the board has the ability to say, focus on these 2, going in.
I'm just gonna say, my opinion is, we look at number 2. Talked about it yesterday with the vertiport. I was mentioned today, I told you, I read today, this air-to-air mobility thing. That seems a major direction in aviation around the world right now. And that's something we could probably get in on early and create growth and create opportunity. Third one, with your tower controllers, I think it's great, but you fight the federal government. Just my opinion. Land asset optimization would be great. But I think the near term is a. Carol?
So from a programmatic perspective, if you look at these, if I were to create a triage, I think I would also drop off number 3 for a variety of reasons. So you're looking at the first 2. Is it your thought, or is it possible that we, even if we identified 2, we would not necessarily have to weight them evenly? And by that, I mean, I think we all need to be careful that, okay, we're saying here's a 10% opportunity for bonus. And our fiduciary responsibility, just as we do for every other bonus opportunity, is that there is something specific, attainable, trackable, and again, we are able to evaluate, has it been achieved, and if so, to what extent? Okay, so we know that we have to do that, just can't be go off and come back with an idea. So we'll get it tighter, and I think we're close to that. So in my opinion, again, I agree that 3 is laudable, but probably doesn't reach the level of let's do it the first year. The second thing I would offer is that we would have an opportunity if we said one is perhaps more important than the other and would have more benefit. And if I were to say which of these 3 we have been talking about the longest is number 1.
Yes.
That, I mean, we have been talking about that since we've been on the board, and that is more than a day and a half. We have had opportunities, and we tried to do strategies, and I remember having workshops and you had up on the board, well, here's FAU over here, and then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? If we could partner with someone, some other entity to look at this from a broader level, that who knows, might include a little bit of vertiport stuff if it's land, maybe there's partnerships there. I would certainly say that, but I agree with you that the vertiport is very timely. So my proposal would be that we identify 2.
Yep.
And we give more weight to number 1. And by that, I mean, we're saying 10% goal opportunity. We will work on specifically how you measure, and I've got some thoughts there, and that there would be, and I'll just throw this out for discussion, 7% opportunity for number one, which is the land, and 3% opportunity for number 2. Now you can play with the numbers, it's just the concept that I'm kind of shooting for here. And then I would suggest that we might need a little bit more definition and clarity so that when we come around to evaluate this at the end of the year, again, we have a lot of eyes on us and we want to do our due diligence anyway, as we always do, that we have specific guidelines so that we are not just developing strategy, we're delivering a strategic plan for evaluating land asset opportunities, and that we kind of bullet in there, what does that strategic plan look like? Is it a 2-page document? Is it a 20-page document? You can pull it up, but I think, but that, if we at this meeting agree that 2 is good, that we are going to come, you are going to come up with Clara.
Yep.
With smart goals, right?
Yep.
Bullet, we'll leave that to you, but the board could see that authority to you, say there's 2. And you can even decide, with our guidance, I think, that if one is more important, is it a 7.3 to 6.4 percentage opportunity? But we need to be sure at the end of the day, when we are evaluating Clara or anyone, as we would anyone, on how much bonus they get, we are able to very specifically say, they did this, they did this, they did this, and then at what level did they do it? Remember, the opportunity is 7%. Maybe there are some reasons that you couldn't deliver. Doesn't mean you didn't try, but you didn't deliver on the smart. So maybe it's 5% that you would get there, and we struggle with this as we do, all of us do,
Yeah,
our private
yeah.
lives, you know,
Well-
our business lives, but that would be my thought.
Make it measurable to.
Yes, make
to
it
the extent that
measurable.
We can.
Yes.
So,
And get it.
Yeah.
So we would, at this meeting, and, because we don't wanna hold it up too much, right, it needs to get started. And I guess we also need some clarification from you, Claire. These are big things. You could hire a consultant to do these things.
these are multi-year initiatives.
So how much could you get done? And we need assurances from you that you've got the time and the bandwidth to do this and still do all the other things you need to do. So is that?
So just to clarify, Cheryl, because I thought you were going down the road of putting a heavier weight towards the vertiport, but you're saying put a heavier weight towards.
Well, I would
number
say
one.
land.
Okay,
I would say land because it's the biggest, scariest issue we've dealt with on the board. And you know, maybe you even come to a conclusion that just nothing we
Yeah.
can do.
well, it's
That's
a
the more
legacy
difficult
issue.
one. It's the hardest one.
It is.
Yeah.
But would also, I would hope that when you build in the specifics of this, when we did this before, the 2 or 3 times we've done it before, is we put our collective, you know, knowledge base there. Well, none of us are experts in this area. That part of that would be you're partnering with experts in this area. Here's what others have done.
Right.
Here's what, if, you know,
Well, it's been
Donald, we're still
workshop
with us, it would be there,
topics,
you know, yeah.
in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is not our core competency,
Yeah.
and,
No, I agree.
so I think we need to bring bigger guns to this, and I think it's a worthy goal. And who knows, maybe, like I said, maybe even have to put it to sleep. Say, you know, unless something changes at FAU, or so there's just not much. Unless we switch over to vertiport and we don't need as much land, you know, okay. So you've got a little bit going on each one, but as long as it's.
Yeah, I just worry that, yeah, this is just too much of a body of work. I don't want it to deter from the great work that's already been accomplished. And let's remember that starting in October, Claire is going to be chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, and she will be attending all these extra events from breakfast, lunches, and dinners, representing the airport. And both of you have done this job, so you know what that's like. And that's another thing on top of what she's already expected to do. So, I mean, I'm just a little hesitant. I mean, I get where we're coming from here, but I just don't want it to take away from all the great momentum that we've already had.
That was my first observation. is that you-
At Global, are you talking about any of these? Are you talking about the one in particular, item number one?
I believe in, you know, maybe a stretch goal, but I mean, something that's maybe just a little, especially in the first years to see how it goes. I don't know. I feel like this might be a little more than we can bite
I
off.
think you're right. The first year, right, point that will be data gathering, see if it's even
Yeah,
feasible.
Well, then I would say,
Second one.
if that is our feeling, we need to rethink the 10%. Because, you know,
Well,
if
I
we
guess,
get 10% of work done on that, then it's more than just a strategy. I don't know.
you know, the other thing to bear in mind though, is that, you know, you hit on one thing, Cheryl, which is, you know, we may go down the road of needing to utilize a consultant or consultants on this. Also, I'm assuming that, you know, Claire is the leader of this initiative. It doesn't mean she's gonna be doing anything that, you know, parts of this she can delegate to her staff to help with. And so personally, I think, you know, we should have at least 2 of these. And again, this is all new to us. This is part of us thinking cutting edge, is we're gonna, you know, provide our leader with stretch goals. And so I think we need to play this through the first year. But my personal feeling is, you know, I like what you laid out, 7 and 3. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Bob, but you know, good people find a way to get things done too, so, not to put a burden on.
We are,
More of a burden.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Okay. I'll be short. So I agree with a lot of what you said. I certainly understand what you're saying. To me, I look at these things like, okay, and no, I think you're doing this all too tired, no, pretty, you know, the impact of success there on what the government will allow us to do or not do. So we can work our tails off and not have any success there, things out of our control, greater or out of our control, which leads me to focus on 1 and 2. 2 seems to be, is that a need? So I'm looking at the perspective of, is it a need in 1 year, 2 or 3 years? Is it a need to be competitive? Is it a need to be able, do we need to do this? And the first one I look at under the same criteria, is it a need to do this? And I don't really know. Like we talked in the past, we all have about, you know, what's going on on the land side and what we can do to be able to, what's satisfying the needs that we have for additional land and reusing it. To me, the need for continuing to grow our uses here at the airport is a priority. Not necessarily item number 2, which you take that out, especially because there seems to be something right next door to us that might be comparable. Would we be competing with them maybe? No? Okay. And then the third one, I thought, I described myself already. So the first one, I thought maybe there's a need there. Maybe that's something that we truly have a need, but it's going to play out over a long period of time. And is it best to divert our energy to something like that? And that's where my head goes on this. And if that's the goal, then that's a reasonable stretch goal. So if I had to pick one of these, I would say I would pick item number 1. If it's doable, the other part of this I would have would be, what are the measurements? Like, how do we measure that?
That's what
are
we're
the
gonna see.
metrics? That's the hardest
Which
part.
we would have to.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't want to build something that's so tall and so hard that Clara would struggle to get there, you know, and it would distract her, to your point, of what she's doing so well for the 11 years we've been working together. So, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that, I think that number 1 is, it's a fluid situation. And we know over the years, just like our acquisition over here and, changing events with the university, with the theater, we gotta keep our eye on the ball. And there are just so many different aspects of that. We definitely need to keep an eye on what's going on. As far as the vertipoint, we've already identified 3 different entities here locally who want to stick their toe into that. I think we need to kind of maybe have a meeting of the 3 and figure out what the overall goal might be in that regard. So I think I'll go along with Cheryl. I think 7.5 on number 1 and 2.5 on number 2. How's that?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Just to your point, when you do the SMART goals, A is for achievable. So it should not come to us as steps in completing these unless the 2 of them agree it's achievable. And achievable is going to take into account the time that's available and the actual metric at the end. So that part should be handled. And both of you are really kind of saying very similar things. The way I'm interpreting what you're saying, Jean, is that we also need to be visionary here. We do a good job of running an airport. I think every time Clara has ever reported to us what Naples does, or airports, but what our others do who are in similarly situated airports as ours, all our metrics are, well, there's we do a lot more with a lot less money, a lot fewer people. So we got it humming. We got it humming. You keep it humming. But you need to look ahead. We don't want to let opportunities pass us by. Vis-a-vis vertiport, yeah, there's some initiatives going on. Maybe there's some potential partnerships there that we bring together, that we become a participant in. And maybe there are opportunities, there are money-making opportunities for us in the future. You know, when we first started the airport, I wasn't here, but there weren't that many out there that airports like ours that had tenants that had movie theaters. Look how that really benefited us during sequestration, HOPA, certainly sequestration. We're going, yeah, well, you know, you guys cut away because most of our money doesn't come anyway. So when that happened, we said, wow, somebody really got ahead on this. And I bet that wasn't easy. And I think that this is the time that we can afford in our history of the airport, because we don't have to worry about Who's gonna pay the bills? How are we gonna do this? We can't get anybody to work here. Well, we don't have a strong leader. We have all that. So yes, we have to keep our eye on the ball. That's job one. But now's an opportunity for us to be visionary, look ahead. That's what we asked you guys to do when you come up with stretch goals. To your point, it wasn't just perform at 150%. No. Look outside that box. And I think these, at least the first two, are strongly outside the box, and we can reassess.
I mean, we're all on board with what Cheryl's saying, right? I mean, we need to, maybe to be cutting edge, visionary, whatever kind of term you wanna use, I mean, so.
The best situation could be 5 years from now, if none of us are on that board, on this board. Board that's sitting here, and maybe it's 10 years if Claire is not here, but at that point, it would, who the heck decided to do, they must have. They were thinking ahead. Yeah. But these are the times.
Yeah, exactly. Jim, you had something to say?
I'm in agreement. I think the top two, that, we've seriously got some stretching here, and,
Yeah.
the property one for sure. I was more focused on the deliverables, because if we're saying the deliverable, and I know we've already talked about doing the smart deliverables, but we're saying on the first one, it would be a completion of a land development business plan. That would be the only thing. Okay, I think that would be good. I don't know what it would look like, but the other one just talks about a study will evaluate emerging technologies. And I was thinking it should be more like a business plan, or, something more detailed to get there for that.
Well, both Cheryl and Jean mentioned partnerships, and I think
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are the first things to be talking
I
about.
think it just needs to be tweaked.
You have to
be
get that part.
Find on what the deliverables are, to me, other than that, the top two are.
I mean, there has been some work that we can dust off on the land
Yeah.
piece, right? I mean, and a lot of it's just stuff that we've looked at in the past with, talking to FAU, talking to the state,
That's how we know it's very hard.
are there other things to look at there, are there, easements around the property that we should, could look at somehow recapturing, and runoff areas, and, there's a whole myriad of things that we need to unturn every rock, so.
And it could be that as you, I would say the next step that you would immediately jump on, assuming we went forward with it's the first two, it is some, dichotomy of 6-3, whatever you decide is appropriate, giving value to the one that you think is the most important. And I think for Rich, that might be one. That, you would put together something specific, so we would prove in concept going forward with this. We have some guidelines around it. You would come back fairly quickly is what those steps would be and what your SMART goals would be. So again, when it comes to now we're evaluating you, will work well. And then you have to also, I think, figure out what if something happens and there's nothing to be done on the land use. Well, what happens to that 7% bonus opportunity? Can you go back? I think if we say that you can, then you can go back and look at, well, let's take those percentage points and let's put them down into the mobility, the vertiport. I don't know, can we do that?
So the contract contemplates that you set your stretch goals and then you revisit them every year to make sure they're being viable. So what you're saying is consistent.
Make adjustments.
Yes.
So, Amy, Clara, so we have just, kind of pull this all together. We have a resolution that kind of codifies this. But, the board has also come to a consensus that focus on two with a larger weight on the land initiative.
Right.
So do we need to define that exactly as part of the resolution? That do we need to say, is it gonna be 7.5, 2.5, or 7 and 3, or?
Well, so you have the ability as a board, you have the discretion at the end of the year to weight the performance based on the performance. I don't think you need to constrain yourselves at this time. But there is, answers in terms of what contracts. The second thing I would say is, the stretch goals that are referenced in the contract will refer to tasks. So this set of goals that you have been looking at here today, talk about these as projects. And so I think that you can lead the effort by how you orient the stretch goals, which are tasks, which I think, plays into the point that you made about SMART, things that are measurable, that are specific.
So in other words, this resolution could be that right now, the board approves an opportunity for a 10% stretch goal in the general areas of land assessment and vertiport feasibility. Isn't that all we would have to do? And then the next thing that will come back from the subgroup, which is I think just the two of you,
Yeah.
would be the details around that.
Yeah, I mean, so I would recommend that you do have your liaison come back to you with something that creates tasks based on these projects. So that, because the eligibility is based on either achieving or making significant progress towards the stretch goal. And so I think by tasking it out, you're letting yourselves know what's significant progress towards the.
Does that mean you're saying that we cannot approve it at a general directional level at 10%?
No, I'm saying,
you can't.
I'm saying you can approve the concepts
Right.
and ask for further refinement.
Yeah.
To kind of elucidate the issue of what does significant progress.
Because, I mean, just to clarify, the 10% has already been approved as part of.
It's in the
where
contract.
it's
Oh,
in the
okay.
contract, so.
Then when we need a resolution.
What we're talking about is exhibit A. If you look at the resolution, it says all the detail will be the stretch goals, will be in exhibit A, which would be what we're gonna develop here, but I don't know that we need to have the resolution. I mean, we're already halfway
Right.
through our year anyway. Can I wait another?
Yeah, the two things the resolution does for you. Number one is it identifies projects that you think are suitable for development of stretch goals. And it creates a paper trail that says, yes, we're on the same page that, progress towards this, we think fits the definitional category of stretch goal, number one. And then number two, it delegates to your liaison the power to bring back to you task related specifics that you can use to test eligibility at the end of the year. So those are the only two things you're doing. So
What would you attach as exhibit A? That's my question.
so it's
Why
this
would
way-
we do this if,
this without-
we just said, we're gonna take this out and do better on the SMART goals? So you're gonna have to revise this,
So with
and
this,
then we approve exhibit A, but I'm not sure we can't do anything anyway until we have both, I don't think. So why rush this apart if we don't have exhibit A? What's the importance?
You're saying when we come back with more specifics, include
Yeah.
the resolution then.
Doesn't another month?
All you're gonna do is end your resolution once you get the additional
Yeah,
data that you guys.
but why do
Your
that?
point, it's a good point.
you delegate what they're developing your goals off of. So it's telling the delegate 1 and 2, come back and bring us the specifics. That's all this resolution does.
Okay, to me, I understand what Jim's saying. The resolution says in line with attachment A says 1, 2, 3.
We don't have. In my mind, we have one that's marked up.
Yeah,
We're gonna take out number 3.
Okay.
To take number 3 out based on today's discussion.
And again, I'm saying, okay, why attach this when we know we're gonna wait for the SMART goals? And kind of define those better than just a study to evaluate emerging. Why?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I mean, your point of realizing what's going on, we have minutes. About us directing him
Yeah.
to do that. So
My
I
motion.
need to have a resolution. I'd rather get a resolution that's more on point. I think Jim's.
So the motion would be around, focus on item 1 and 2. With a higher weight towards 1.
And the task for you guys is to come back with milestones, right?
Yeah.
And the milestones would be a deliverable task.
Yeah.
So that at the end, we would be able to say, well, you did this task, this task, this task, and for whatever reason, didn't do this. So
Yeah.
then you're not.
That'd be our exhibit A.
Yeah,
That's the
and
exhibit
that
A.
becomes part of our discussion in January.
So that brings me to the next question of, in January, we're 6 months in, are we expecting just done like in 6 months, that starts.
Well, the tasks
More
would
than-
reflect the time frame. You know, the contract says that you're supposed to do this at your annual budget meeting. Obviously, in year one, you knew that you weren't gonna be able to do that. So your year one task deliverables will reflect the time that's left in the year.
So that would be another thing in exhibit A is what you're saying.
So with that,
That's what I.
but again, to your point, January rolls around. Doesn't even know about it until now. You only have 6 months. Is the bonus potential still 10% because that's written in the contract?
Yeah, and you have discretion to decide whether you think that the effort that's.
Yeah, it's up to
So,
10%.
okay, so it is reasonable to think that if we're not starting till half the year.
Yeah.
That if she was going full guns, if we thought that these two were good for a full year, that in this year, it would probably just be a 5%.
You have discretion.
I think we need to be open-minded and see what type of progress is made in January, where we're at. I mean, but, you know, I don't disagree with your thinking, but, you know, she may, you know, Clara might jump on this and, you know, accomplish a whole year's worth of, work in 6 months.
10% was the max, so.
Yeah,
we're not-
exactly.
we're not trying to say 10%, nothing. So
Okay.
it could be 10%.
Give us-
I know, that's a good discussion.
Yeah. Her contract.
So were we remiss not in not doing this earlier in the year?
Well, this is a new concept and, budget time is in August,
Yeah.
so it's still sort of in the timing of.
Yeah, going on.
I mean, Mitch just made a good point too. He says the reality is by the time this gets settled, we're gonna be 2/3 of the year.
Right.
The way in, so
This
what do
isn't
we,
an overnight task.
no, so what do we need as a motion?
So the motion is, that you are directing the delegate, which I think is you, to, bring back, tasks that are consistent with numbers 1 and 2, according to the way that has been discussed here today, for further consideration by the board for formal adoption as a stretch goal.
We don't have a July meeting, does that happen to
So rather than this motion, we have a new motion.
So, well, it's a motion,
This
not
says
a resolution.
This has base.
Yeah,
right.
So-
So can we, so that Clara can get started on some of these, I mean, you two can get together in a week, probably, you know, work this out.
Yes,
You can send it to us all and we can say, go, so you'll have a shot at.
Well,
achieving-
it has to be approved by the board according to the employment contract. So unless you want to delegate your delegate with the power to approve it on behalf of the board, then you need to do it at a board meeting.
but I mean, there's no I mean, there's gonna be some basic things that are involved in this that she can start working on. I mean, one is just to identify potential partnerships. You know, you know, there's a lot of things that we've talked about in the past about land that we can start to revisit, so.
Would, Randy have within the guidelines of what we can do as a board when we're not at a board meeting? So let's say a week or 2 weeks in, two of you have worked it out, that, okay, here's my plan, it's, you know, here's my 6-month plan, and here's my, my task. They're all measurable, here's my SMART goals. Can Clara or Randy not just send that out to all of us? Or is it, can you send it to my 4 of us and we can comment? Or is that considered board work and we can't do that?
It's a sunshine law violation for
Okay.
you to exchange information. Now, a single board member under the rules governing sunshine can disseminate information, but there can't be discussion. So if someone sends you something, you can't comment that. So, you know, if somebody produces information and just provides it, you guys think about it individually, that's.
How about if it's provided by Clara and she provides it to us one at a time? Go back.
You can always talk to staff, but staff cannot act as a conduit between you. So that's the
But we
distinction. Yeah.
wouldn't, it would
You
be
can always
talk
talk to
about
her
this
directly.
and I can hear my thoughts, Clara. Back to Clara.
Yeah.
And then she
can
gets
always-
thoughts from Jim. Can she compile those thoughts after conversation? Say,
Well, she can do with input that you provide her, you know, whatever kind of synthesis that makes sense, but she can't share it then with the rest of you until, you know, it has to be discussed within the open set.
So what is the suggestion on, we are looking for a way to move this forward because we are, again, in agreement in concept. It's just on the details of the, we want to move it along so everybody can get started. Also sounds like kind of fun project. How do we do that?
So, I
What's
mean,
the best way? Pass this motion.
it's less time sensitive in my view as to when you either approve in the first instance or ratify the stretch goals. As long as you don't penalize her for working on something in advance of your approval, if that makes sense. So she can work with Randy to identify, okay, what's step one, what's step two, and she can get started. And you guys can ratify his direction to her and say, yeah, we agree, those are part of the stretch goals, and you can evaluate her on work that she starts as soon as Randy gives her direction. All of that is consistent with her comment.
And to be, you know, honest, from my perspective, you know, the amount of discussion and enthusiasm and input on this item, I just assume not have the board's proxy to put a final approval on this. I would just assume do what Amy is describing is, let's get these going in the next couple of weeks and let's start working on them, and then
And
we'll
then
bring it back if we have an August meeting, you know.
If you know what your first steps would be anyway.
Yes,
On this stuff, and then we can all talk about it. That's great.
So Amy put forth a motion. Did somebody,
Does anyone want to take it on as their motion?
yes,
Can you restate the motion?
Certainly. The motion is to provide a direction to your delegate and to staff to develop measurable tasks consistent with numbers 1 and 2 in the project list that you've been provided here today, with the weighted interest that you've just expressed here today, with, you know, basically 70% on the first one and 30% on the second one, and to bring back to the measurable tasks at your next meeting, with the understanding that work that has been done in fruition of those tasks, you can ratify that, and that can still be considered in January as part of the stretch goal.
So moved.
Okay.
second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Good discussion. So, authority board member request and reports, any input?
I would just like to say that it's been an honor to serve as the chairman with all of you in the last 2 years. The highlight has been kicking off the 75th anniversary a year ago, January, in the signature hangar. Thank you. And launching and opening in January of this year, our observation area, which I think is such a fantastic gift to our community. I'm constantly in awe of these people here behind me, the staff. You guys are great and led by the really awesome Clara. So as a regular board member, I look forward to continue to work with you all and help the airport continue soaring.
Here, thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Hannah?
There is none.
There is none. Any other business? Come before the board. The next meeting has been rescheduled. We're moving it back a week, correct, from the 16th to the 23rd.
That's correct.
Unless it's canceled, so in the, you know, the plan is unless we have, you know, pressing matters that, you know, we're heading down that road. And that was kind of the original intent of the new, enabling, so if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you.